I get so much joy from learning about and exploring what are for me under the radar composers, and we have one such here in this video. I've become a huge fan of Louise Farrenc as of trying to get my hands on as much of her piano music as I can. Greetings, music lovers. Rick Ferguson, rickfergusonmusic.com. Thank you for joining me. I am thrilled to share this very brief exploration into the life and music of 19th century French composer and virtuoso pianist Louise Farrenc. Born 1804, died 1875, both in Paris. Her father, Jacques Edné Dumont, and brother Auguste were both very well-known and highly regarded sculptors. So Louise came from a very arts-rich background and family history. She began to express precocious musical talents at a very early age, ended up studying, and this is one of the fun things about her place in the pianistic and musical firmament. She studied with a former student of Museo Clementi, Cécile Soria, and worked with Soria for several years. Later, she actually went on to work with a couple of the leading pianistic virtuosi of the day, Ignaz Moscheles, but more to the point, Johann Nepomuk Hummel. And I think Hummel had a tremendous influence on Farrenc, both pianistically and compositionally. And we'll discuss that as we prepare to hear a really wonderful example of her chamber music output, her Sonata for cello and piano. She studied composition with one of the leading composition teachers during her formative years at the Paris Conservatoire, but because she was a female student, unfortunately, she was not entitled to study formally at the Conservatoire with Anton Reicha. And if you've ever heard any of Reicha's music, boy, that man knew counterpoint up and down. And so she worked with Reicha for several years, studying privately with him. And it's interesting how the wheels would turn here eventually in a number of years. In 1821, Louise married flutist Aristide Farrenc and toured with him for about a year, a little over, as a flute piano duo. He later was burned out from touring. He opened Farrenc Music Publishing House, which quickly became one of the primary music publishers in Paris, France, for almost 40 years. So this was a significant and mostly successful venture on his part, and we have him to thank for a lot of Louise's music that was then published. She initially built a concert performing career for herself as a pianist and significant notoriety throughout the 1830s that eventually resulted into an appointment as professor of piano at the Paris Conservatoire, where she remained for 30 years teaching, and she was the only woman during the 19th century apparently to hold that post. Initially, she was compensated for her work at the Conservatoire at a lesser rate than her male colleagues. However, when she published her Opus 38 Nonette for mixed instruments, it was championed at that time, I just love this, by the German violinist Joseph Joachim, who, of course, took Johannes Brahms as his protege and toured with Brahms quite a bit when Brahms was a young, up-and-coming pianist and, more importantly, composer. And Joachim really championed this huge chamber work. So it became wildly popular, began to be played all across Europe, really put Farrenc on the map as a composer. And it was that leverage that she and Joachim were able to call upon to get her pay to the level at the Conservatoire with her male colleagues. I love that story. I just love it. As a teacher, she wrote a significant book about piano instruction and how she approached piano education and music education in general, Le Trésor des Pianistes. And she was awarded by the French government the Prix Chartier of the Académie des Beaux-Arts, both in 1861 and also in 1869. So Farrenc was a significant figure in French musical life and French culture during so much of the 19th century, and in a lot of ways was a real trailblazer. And she was a really good composer. If any of you have already discovered her music, please let me know about that, and let me know any of her music that you recommend that I check out. She has a total of 49 opus numbers throughout the 1820s until about 1834. She wrote solely for the piano, very much in the vein almost of Chopin. But eventually she wrote 3 symphonies, 2 significant overtures, 2 sets of variations for piano and orchestra that I'm trying to get my hands on, 8 songs, 3 major choral works, and of special interest to me, 13 chamber works. And what I would like us to do is to listen to the first movement of her final chamber work, her Sonata for Cello and Piano, Opus 46, written in 1857. I've come to just adore this sonata. We're going to listen to the first movement. It's a 3-movement work, and it is very melodically rich. It's harmonically interesting. As a pianist, it falls so well in the fingers. It's so enjoyable. And so much of the keyboard figuration is really reminiscent of Hummel's style, especially at this time where the development of the piano as an instrument was undergoing such incredible change and evolution. We have piano virtuosi and composers really taking advantage of all kinds of innovations in piano building at this time, and Farrenc was no different. So a lot of the figuration is really reminiscent to me of Hummel, but it's very much Farrenc as well. And I really love her music. There is one really lovely tune in particular that the first movement of this cello sonata is based on, and you'll hear this tune appearing several times, of course, in both instruments. That's just a really nice tune, and more importantly, she does some wonderful things with it. She incorporates some counterpoint in her writing, no doubt vestiges of studying with Reicha, and her harmonic language, it's very accessible but not patronizing in any way, and there are some interesting harmonic twists and turns, especially during the course of this first movement. I am joined by my dear friend David Caplan, and we have had the best time exploring Farrenc's cello sonata. So here is the first movement, marked Allegro moderato, cello and sonata, Louise Farrenc, Opus 46. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed that movement. Feel free to check out the rest of it, but also her nonette, all of her piano music. I have grown very fond of her first symphony in particular, and am in the process of trying to get my hands on as much of her piano music as I can, because I've become a huge fan of Louise Farrenc. I want to leave you with a little bit of a review. This appeared in 1847 in the Revue et Gazette Musicale. It was a weekly French publication dedicated to classical music happenings and concerts of the days. A reviewer noted that Farrenc's symphonies, in particular, embodied, and here's the quote, the highest symphonic talent among women, adding that Farrenc was, keep in mind this was very much a review of the time period, not only the first of her sex to approach the genre, but one whose symphonies a great many male composers would be proud to have written. That's very much a statement mid-19th century French and European culture, but she did attract significant notice. She did generate significant notoriety for herself, all extremely well-deserved and earned. And I am so impressed with her output, her legacy of teaching, and her place in French musical culture for such an extended period of time. I think she really needs to be celebrated. In my own small way, I'm trying to do that here. Let me know how you feel about this first movement of her cello sonata, and please share any tidbits that you might happen to know about Louise Farrenc that I would be interested in, because I'm now a huge fan. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so, and like this video. It's really helpful. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.